So today I'm going to be teaching you how to create your own meal plan. Now, before I start this video, I'm just going to assume that you know how many calories you should be having per day and how much protein you should be having today, because they're the most important things to dial in if you're going to get a body transformation. Once you know these two things, then this video is more about how to structure your day once you have those two numbers. So why should you create your own meal plans? So the first point here is just you're going to be taking control of your nutrition. So there's going to be no more guesswork. You're going to know exactly how many meals you should be having per day, what you're going to be eating, and when you should be eating them. And the cool thing is when you create your own meal plans, you can structure them around your lifestyle. So if you're someone who likes to have 3 meals per day, you can create a meal plan for 3 meals per day. Likewise, if you have 5 meals per day, you can structure around 5 meals per day. Also, if you're an early riser, you might eat at the start of the day as opposed to later on the day. Also, it makes it much easier to stay consistent. So when you have structure and you know exactly what to do when you're going to be doing it, it makes it much easier to stick to. And it's going to be less stressful because you're going to know exactly what to eat, when to eat it, why you're eating it, is it hitting all my targets. So it does take a lot of the stress work out of it. Also, I feel you can be a lot more flexible as well. So even though you've got structure and you're going to be planning out what you're going to be eating in advance, it makes it easier to swap things out. Because if there's a meal, if you get to a meal and you don't want to eat it, you can literally swap it for something that has the same amount of calories, the same amount of protein. So it actually allows for better flexibility. And you're going to see faster progress because if you're eating similar stuff each day, it's much easier to make changes. Because if you swap one thing out, bring something in, you'll be able to notice what sort of change it makes to your body, as opposed when you're just eating random stuff all the time, it's hard to pick what's eating, what's not working. So I always recommend having similar amount of calories every day, sticking to the same basic meal plan every day, and it's much easier to make changes from there and you'll get faster results. All right, so when you're creating your own meal plan, the first thing you need to do is decide how many meals you're going to be having per day. Like I already mentioned, total calories and protein is the most important thing for getting body transformation. So it doesn't matter how many meals you have per day, whether you have 5 meals per day, 3 meals per day, as long as you're hitting your calorie target, it's completely fine. So what you need to do is you need to choose the amount of meals per day that just suits your lifestyle. So if you're someone who likes having 3 meals per day, that's fine. If you're someone like me, I eat 6 times a day, that's completely fine too. So let's look at some basic structures. So if you have 3 meals per day, you're going to have 3 bigger meals. So it's going to be a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you're having closer to 5 meals per day, it'll still be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but then you're going to add in a couple of snacks, and you'll be using them based on if you feel like you need energy and if you tend to someone who gets hungry. So that's how you're going to base how many meals you have per day, and you're just going to stick to it all the time. Don't chop and change from day to day because, again, that starts to build in uncertainty and a bit more guesswork in there. Just stick to a meal frequency that suits your lifestyle. Step number 2 is we're going to focus on all your main meals. All right, so we're going to have 2 types of main meals. We're going to have main meal before you train and then every other meal. So we're going to call them anytime meals. So you're going to have the meal before you train and then you're going to have anytime meal, which will be every other meal for the day. So your meal before you train is where you're going to add in some carbohydrates, and every other meal you're not going to have carbohydrates for your main meals. So just to give you an example how that would work, if we look at your plate, if for an anytime meal, your plate would be made up of quarter protein, if an optional bit of fats, and the rest of your plate filled with vegetables. If you're doing a meal before you train, that's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be similar though. It's going to be quarter protein, quarter carbohydrates, and half your plate with veggies. So that's how you're going to make it up. So always a quarter of your plate protein source, and then it'll be either half a plate or 3/4 of your plate with vegetables. If it's a meal before you train, then it's going to be quarter of your plate with carbs, and then wherever possible, just add a small amount of fat. This gives you a little bit of a simple structure to follow and takes out a little bit of the guesswork and overcomplication. All right, now that we know how to structure a meal, the first thing you need to do is you need to base every single meal around your protein first, because protein keeps you full and it supports muscle growth. So some examples there, you've got chicken, turkey, lean beef, eggs, fish, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese in there, protein powder, those sorts of foods. If you're looking for more vegan options, it will be like lentils, chickpeas, beans, tofu, and vegan protein powders. So you always choose your protein source first, then you build the rest of your meal around what your protein source is. And you should be aiming for protein in every meal for the day, by the way. So even when we get to snacks, I'll give some examples of there. Now, once we've chosen our protein source, if it's an anytime meal, so all the meals that come after your training session, we're just going to fill the rest of your plate with vegetables, and it's just going to be non-starchy vegetables. So think like broccoli, zucchini, spinach, peppers, green beans, all that sort of stuff. So in the real world, think like vegetables and salad. So any meal after a training session, we're going to choose a protein. So for example, it might be chicken, and then we're going to fill the rest of the plate with veggies. So for example, it might be a chicken salad, so a bit of chicken, then a whole bunch of spinach or lettuce. You can put tomatoes in there, onion in there. You can put whatever you want in your salad. So you can beef it up as much as you want, and that would create a good meal. Or it might be you might have a bit of beef, so a steak, and then you might fill the rest of the plate with steamed vegetables or roast vegetables as an example. So that's how you're going to be building your main meals. And then in terms of adding fats in there, it could be a little bit of oil, it could be some nuts, it could be some seeds in your salad. So that gives you a bit of an idea of how to structure your meal, any meal after a training session. Other examples, it might be like a stir-fried chicken with a whole bunch of veggies in there and create a stir-fry. So it gives you some examples. So just think like stir-fries, salads, chicken and roast vegetables. They're the sorts of meals that you're looking for after a training session. Okay, if it's a meal before a training session, you may want to add some carbs in there for extra energy and for hitting training goals. So examples in there might be rice, potatoes, oats, quinoa, bread, stuff like that. So if, for example, I would have breakfast and then train afterwards, I might be having some eggs on toast in there. The eggs will give you protein, healthy fat. Toast will give you carbs. You might add a piece of fruit in there, and that gives you your non-starchy carbohydrates as well. And remember, that's going to make up about a quarter of your plate. If you train after lunch, you might have like a wrap or a sandwich, or you might have some rice in there, or it might be some like potatoes if you're having like roast vegetables, and then you would go and train. So that gives you energy for your training source. So remember, meal before you train, quarter of your plate protein, quarter of your plate carbs, half of your plate would be vegetables. Meals after you train, you're just going to have protein, add a bit of fat in there if you can, and 3/4 of your plate is going to be vegetables. So they're your two types of main meals. Now, after that, step number 6 is all about building out your snacks. So if you're someone that is going to be adding snacks in there, a simple rule is to choose a protein source first if you can, then either add some carbs or some healthy fats to it. Some examples are, you might have some Greek yogurt, add some berries. Might be a protein shake, add a banana. Might be some hard-boiled eggs with some rice cakes, or even some tuna on some rice cakes. Cottage cheese with a bit of fruit. So if we do that, it's much easier to hit your protein goal. And if you hit your protein goal, that's going to go a long way to retaining as much muscle as possible. And these extra meals in there will help keep you fuller as well throughout the day. If you're someone who likes to eat more, everyone's completely different. But remember what I said, it's not about how many meals you have per day. It's about your total calories and total protein. That's the most important thing first. This is just to give you a bit of structure on how to create your own meal plan. All right, step number 7 is adding a bit of variety. So what I believe you should do is just have 2 or 3 breakfast options, 2 or 3 lunch options, 2 or 3 dinner options, and then maybe 4 or 5 snack options. What that does, it allows for a little bit of variety in there. However, it makes it much easier to plan your shopping, also plan any cooking. So you're going to save a lot of time by just having similar meals all the time. and just having a few different ones on rotation. And then on the weekend, if you want a lot more variety, that's when you would like go out for dinner and get something completely different. But during the week and mostly on weekends, just stick to the same 2 or 3 meals from each one, and it'll make it way easier, less time consuming for cooking, less time consuming for making decisions. You get a little bit of variety in there. Also, it makes it hitting the same calories and protein much easier throughout the day, and it helps you to plan easier. And it saves you time shopping as well, and it'll save you money with your shopping. All right. Then your next step is when you first create a meal plan, which I'll go through on how we're going to do it on a spreadsheet in a moment. Once you've created your meal plan, I recommend you log all your meals in your tracking app first. And then once you've got them in your tracking app, you can check if you're going to be hitting your total calories and protein, and then you can just adjust from there. So you design your meal plan. The first day you'd eat it all, see where your calories and protein ends up. If you're a little bit over or a little bit under, then you just adjust the portion sizes for the next time that you eat it. If you can, prepare your meals the day before, and then you log it all, and then you'll be able to easily track it. So all you do is you just write it all down first, make all your food, put it in your tracking app, and then once you've got one full day, you can easily adjust the portion sizes, and in the tracking app you can just copy and paste from day to day to make sure you're hitting your targets. And then again, if you don't want to eat a certain meal, you can just take it out and replace it with something of the same calories and protein. All right, I just mentioned this, but in your tracking app, you should either MyFitnessPal or my app, you will be able to copy and paste from day to day. So when you've got 2 or 3 breakfast options and lunch options and dinner options, you can just copy them over from day to day, which makes it much easier to log your food, and you're much easier to adjust the portions so you know if you're going to hit your targets or not. Also, it's easier to swap foods out, because if you get to like a snack that's tuna and rice cakes and just say it's 20 grams of protein and 10 grams of carbs and it's like 200 calories, well, you just needed to replace it. You can delete it, swap it in for something that's close to 20 grams of protein, 200 calories. Could be like a protein bar, and it's the same amount. All right. Once you've got like a full week of food, then it's easy, because then you can just adjust the portion sizes and just copy from day to day to day, and you've created your own meal plan, and you can just adjust it occasionally. You might add a different meal in there, add one into the rotation, take one out of the rotation, and then you start to consistently hit your targets. Then it's much easier to make adjustments based on what your goal is. So if your weight loss starts to stall, you can just drop the calories a little bit down, and it's just about adjusting portion sizes. All right, now the only restriction for meal plans is obviously if you've got the weekend coming up, or you've got events like social events, work events. So if you've got a meal out, you just need to plan ahead. So you can still have your standard meal plan, but what you do first is you just, wherever you're going to be eating, if possible, check the menu, get the calories off the menu, put them in your calorie tracking app, and then you do that first at the start of the week, and then all you need to do is you need to just reverse engineer, go through your tracking app, and just start to adjust all the portion sizes. So you might have less calories throughout the day, throughout the week, so you have more calories for your meal on the weekend. So for example, if you're going to be going out for pizza and your pizza's 1,500 calories, so you need an extra 500 calories throughout the week, you can literally have 100 calories less throughout the week, and that means you have an extra 500 calories for when you want to have your pizza. Now, if you've created your own meal plan, that makes it much easier, because you've already got it there in your tracking app, and you can literally adjust the serving sizes, or maybe take one snack out, and you'll easily be able to still hit your goals. And my recommendation in the meals that you created earlier, if, say, you've created meals that are predominantly protein and veggie, then you can literally just adjust portion sizes, or if you've got like a high carb meal, so for example, the meal before you train, you can literally just take the carbs out, put more veggies in there, and that will probably be 100 calories less right there. And that is called calorie banking. So that's where you have fewer calories throughout the week to save calories for your weekend. And if you've planned all your food in advance and created your own meal plan, it makes it much easier to do this than each day just trying to have 100 calories less. And you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I've gone over my calories or not. If you plan ahead, write out a meal plan, it makes it much, much easier.